Right, well, I'm going to begin by asking, there are daunting, challenging roles for actors to take on, and then there's playing Martin Luther King. When you were sort of first got involved in this project, were you ever quite apprehensive about getting involved simply because of the fact that it's such a huge role, and so many people got their own ideas of Martin Luther King as well?
I didn't, and I think it's because I'm British. I think it's because I didn't grow up with the deification of him. I didn't grow up in a culture where he is as significant a figure as he is in America. Of course, he's a huge world figure, but for some reason, it wasn't the first thought I had. The first thought I had was, wow, what an incredible man, because as I read the script, he's a father, he's a man with weaknesses, he's a man who was, he didn't just talk about love, but he demonstrated it in the way he campaigned for people who were facing prejudice. And so those were the things that first interested me. It's actually not until the film has been done and is now out in the world, I'm like, oh my goodness, right. Thankful I didn't know this going in.
Do you think that the fact that you are British and you had that kind of outside perspective was quite beneficial then to your performance?
100% I do, because one of the problems in playing Dr. King, one of the pitfalls would be to just accentuate his historical significance by really banging those speeches, really sort of going in there with those scenes opposite Lyndon Johnson and just being the leader, as opposed to it being, I think, revelatory about who the man actually was. What I always hoped is that you'd come away from this film feeling like you found out things about him that you didn't know. You found out aspects of his personality that you haven't seen. And so, I think I went immediately there because I was interested more in the man than the icon.
Well, yeah, the most interesting scenes in this aren't necessarily the speeches, but it's when he arrives home in the evening,
right,
isn't it?
Right.
I mean, do you think that making him, because it's such a subtle performance from you, and do you think that making him a human almost shows off his achievements to be even more remarkable, because we can almost relate to him in this film?
I'm glad you say that, because that is exactly what films are. I truly believe we go to the movies to see ourselves. We want to hitch our wagon to the protagonist and ask ourselves as the film rolls out, what would I do in this situation? The danger with someone like Dr. King is to just have him be over there and observe him, whereas to show his weaknesses, to show his lack of surety at times is a reflection of who we all are as human beings. And I think there's something very powerful in the idea of no matter who you are, what age you are, what color you are, to look at Dr. King and think, you can relate to him, and what would I do? And do I have the potential for greatness as well within me?
I was wondering as well, I mean, when you give as much to a role as you have with this, can it be quite difficult to go back to being yourself after a shoot, particularly with a biopic, perhaps more so than with films where you're playing a sort of fictional character?
With this, because it was such a long time coming, I first read the script in 2007, and it took 7 years between then and us actually getting the film made. And also, it was a heavy burden to bear, playing him, being in that emotional space for the 2 to 3 months that we shot the film for. So the minute they called cut on the last scene, I was very happy to walk away. There was no lingering Dr. King, apart from the weight gain. Like I say, I was very, very happy to move on.
And just finally, I mean, of course, there's been, whenever you have a film of this ilk, that it raises issues of diversity in cinema, which has obviously been a sort of talking point this week. But do you think there's something quite encouraging about the fact that recently in films we've seen stories about black protagonists told from their own perspective? I mean, you've got 12 Years a Slave, Selma, The Butler. They're at the heart of their own stories now. Do you think there is, despite the negative side, there is light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think that we're progressing somewhat?
Hugely. I mean, Selma, the reason why Selma took so long to get made is because there were no, apart from Malcolm X, that was however many years ago, which Spike Lee really struggled to get that film off the ground, there were just years and years where, we didn't have a 12 Years a Slave. We didn't have a film like The Butler. And I know for a fact that, this film was a beneficiary of those films doing critically well and box office well. I know that that's why Paramount decided to greenlight the film, literally. So this is a sea change. And, the hope is that it won't be sort of a blip on the radar, but that this will be a constant stream so that not every time we have a film like this are we talking about diversity or the lack of it, but we can just tell these stories and they can be seen by all human beings, and that we can all just learn from each other going forward through art like this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. You too. All right.
Cheers.
Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,